recordings again.
I will. That's on now.
On it. Okay. Right, everyone. Welcome to session. I don't even know how many of all the e-trainings that we've done. This is our third for the lockdown series. Fourth.
Oh no, no, third. Yeah.
I know I'm going.
I'm starting to write about the fourth.
Yeah. So this is our third for the lockdown series, and we'll do another one next week because that's our additional week in lockdown. I imagine we'll keep doing them sporadically after that because it's quite easy for me and seems to work well for everyone else. So if you are interested in a different time slot or a specific day, feel free to just email us and let us know what might be easier. If you want to attend the live sessions, everything's recorded, so you can always come back and listen to it later, but just an FYI there. Today's session is probably one of my favorite topics that I've done so far. I get to pick random ones, and today we're going to learn about giraffes, which is by hands down favorite animal. So it's been a really nice module for me to work on. It's very short, and one of the things I want to go through is kind of setting up some different question types, so how you can use interaction. We'll do the same kind of run through on how I built it. So without further ado, I will share my screen. Now, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yeah, can see it.
Okay, great. One of the things that I hope will come through okay, we'll see if it works. So with this module, I'll click start, and I've put some audio in the background that loads when you start the module, so hopefully you can hear it, but if you can't, just know that it's there. You hear that? I don't know if you will be able to or not. Anywho, this is an example of embedded audio as a way to include a little bit more engagement, not only just with the content, but also to just kind of set the scene. This is a technique that I use every once in a while when I just kind of want to take someone and put them in a different environment without just relying on imagery. So the audio that I'm using here is just a bit of a snapshot of bush sounds from Africa. So that's pretty much kind of what you should be hearing in the background. You may not be able to, but this is something we've used in the past for, and as an example, we did a module on how to operate a chainsaw. So there was a sound of a chainsaw starting up. There's lots of ways that you can include that. If you were Kirsty, for example, if you're doing something on, say you were doing something on anesthetic monitoring, if you have any kind of veterinary service, you can have the sound of a pulse ox going in the background or something. So there's ways that you can kind of include sound to make things exciting as well. So what I've done here, and I'm not an overly religious person, but I did like this quote. So I opted to start with a quote. So we'll go through how to set this up. And this next page is just a nice embedded video. So this is a great guy. His name's Z Frank. He is very funny and very smart. He's got a lot of really good TED videos if you're into that kind of thing. But he has a whole YouTube channel called True Facts that are actual facts about animals, but presented with a little bit of humor. So I've included that as something if you want to investigate, you can. He's got heaps of them, and they're really great and they're really entertaining. And it's an example of someone who's developed a piece of content that's been done in a conversational, friendly manner. So you're getting legitimate information, but developed and presented in a more engaging fashion rather than just text on a screen. So this module is meant as a representation of how you can use video as your content rather than writing a bunch of stuff. So there isn't any written content in this module. It's just this video, which is, I want to say, about 4 minutes long. And then I go into questions after that. So first question being, what species do giraffes belong to? Which, funnily enough, is Camelopardalis. And then next is, which toes make up the two sides of the hoof? Which will be a third and the fourth. And then we've got this really interesting drag and drop, slider interaction on, let me refresh that. Oh. Hang on one second. I want to show you guys this from the beginning. There we go. Bear with me. Apologies. Right, so this is an example of our slider interaction. And here I'm asking the person to indicate how tall a baby giraffe is. So this is something that we've seen used with people who are doing health and safety in a medical perspective, and they want to show measurement on a syringe. You can also have this running landscape. So it could be used as a Likert type question where you have to indicate how you feel about something between 1 and 5 or 1 and 10. But it can also be used to kind of show a measurement scale. So in this case, that's how we've used it. So what you do with it is drag your little slider across, and I'll show you again how to set this up. But this is an example of including an interaction as the content. So I've not introduced any wording around how tall a baby giraffe is. And it's pretty clear from how you use this that you want to drag it to the top of the baby giraffe, and then it'll tell you how tall a baby giraffe is. So it's a way that you can use an interaction as your learning material, not just as a way to assess someone's knowledge of something. It's a kind of engagement technique that you can use if you've got content that you can kind of find a way to creatively introduce that. And then this last one, for those of you who are interested in including live events or anything that you kind of want to show real-time examples of, YouTube will allow you to do live streaming of cameras. So this video is a live stream, as you can tell from the little indicator right there, of the Oliphants River. So this is an example of a way that you can have something that is kind of a live shot that's involved in a piece of learning. And it doesn't need to be something that people are assessed on. It can just be an interesting thing that you include. It could be, oh, if you work for a port, it could be here's a live shot of what the port's doing right now. You can ask people to put down some observations. It could be anything really. Just an interesting way to include kind of a YouTube video in a slightly different fashion. Right, so that is the module that we've got, and I will swap this across to bring over the functional version. All right, so what I'm going to do is run you through again how we build these side by side. Righto, so for this one, we have a quote. Pretty simple. It's a concept that I use quite often because it's a little bit more interesting than just kind of a sentence on what a giraffe is. It gives you a little bit of, you know, humor or intelligence or anything really. You can find quotes numerous different places. I tend to go for, there's Brainy Quote. There's also another one. Goodreads does some amazing quote collections on different topics. Just use Google to your advantage there and find the one that you like. I happen to like this one, so we've grabbed that. And all that I've done is copy it from its source. And then over here, as per usual, you want to use your keyboard shortcuts here. So Control if you're on a Mac, sorry, Command if you're on a Mac, Control if you're on a Windows, and then add in Shift V to bring that in without any font formatting in the background. If you don't do that, sometimes you won't be able to change the font on the slide itself. So just an FYI, if you're having trouble with copying and pasting and it's not allowing you to change the font color or the size, make sure that you're pasting it in without the formatting, adding Shift in before you hit V. So that's my quote. And then the guy that said it was Pablo Picasso. Now, the other thing that I've got here is this little icon. So that is something that I've grabbed from a site called Icon Finder. This site, if I want to use, for example, this quote image, you search for the one you want. There is a pricing selector up here. So if you click free, you'll find free quote, free icons that you can grab and use to your heart's content. That's what they're there for. So I went with this one. The other thing that you can do is actually change and edit this. So you guys won't want to use SVG, you want to use PNG. And then the other thing you want to do is go for more sizes, and you'll see you've got a bunch of different pixel indicators here. This is where you kind of want to have a think on what size do you want this to be on your page. So you can have a play on this preview window and kind of see what those sizes are. So I think I went for 48 in the end. They also have an icon editor. And that's a really, really handy little tool to allow you to change colors on the thing before you download it. I cannot believe this is offered for free, just as an aside. This very, very handy. So what I want to do is change the background color of that particular quote, kind of fill. So right now it's black, and before I put it on the screen, I wanted it to be more of a brown. So I've gone and found the hex code of the brown that I want to use. When you paste it in there, it'll change the color. And then I also want to drop the opacity down. So this is the same as the settings that we have on our site. This A measurement down here is the opacity, so it controls the transparency of that particular bit. So let's say we want to drop it down to about 40, and you can see that that transparency is coming through. So we'll click OK, and then you go to download and pick your 48 by 48, and then that downloads as a PNG onto your computer. The thing to understand about PNG files, those are the files that will give you transparent backgrounds if they have been designed to have transparency applied to them. If you download something from another site and it's a JPEG file or a JPG, that is effectively a collection of pixels. So pixels are those little squares of color, and there's no transparency associated with a JPG. So you need to keep that in mind. If you need something to have a clear background on it, it should be coming to you as a PNG. And that just means that you won't have kind of white fill on all of these areas where transparency has been associated with it. So keep that in mind. So that's all that I've done for this one is grab that particular icon. So we'll go to Add, Media, and Image. And this is the one that I used before. So that 48 by 48. So we'll double click to add it. And these, when quotes run this direction, that's technically the end of the quote. So I just want to flip that around because it's meant to serve as kind of like a little icon next to the wording itself as the start. So we'll flip it so that it looks like that. The other thing that I've done is create a background image and then a white fill for that particular photo to sit on, or for the quote to sit on. So the background image was a photo that I grabbed from this site that we've mentioned many times now. It's Unsplash. And just as a quick refresher, this is a site where you can get really good quality images that are geared for public use. They've been licensed for that use. They do request that you give your give permission or give reference back to the creator of the image. So the way that we do that on this site anyway is when you download the photo you want, it'll give you a little say thanks, and you just want to grab this embed a credit badge code here. So when you click on that, you'll get a bit of code, HTML code that you can add in. So when you click there, it will highlight the whole thing. So you want to copy all of the code. You'll come back to your slide, double click to make a new cell, go to view and source code, and this takes you kind of to the back end of that particular cell. And from here, you want to paste your HTML there, and then instead of clicking off to save it, you want to click up here and hit save. And that creates this, this badge that is created by the Unsplash code. So you guys don't have to know any coding, you just need to grab that embed code, and you'll have a nice little badge sitting there ready to go. So that's what we've done here. We found an image of a giraffe that was suitable. I wanted the pattern off of their coat. So to set that up as a background, we'll go new page, make a blank slide, go to add and media and image. And then you'll see here, this is the original image that I found. So this is doing a little bit of creative thought. I scrolled through, found an image of a giraffe that I liked that was nice and clear and gave me enough space to get a good rectangle off of the pattern on the hide. And all that I've done is go to edit once I have it in the system. And you'll see, because this image is really big, it's 5,000 by 3,000 something pixels, it's huge. So you may need to zoom out to see everything. Down here, you'll see the zoom controls. Sorry, I've got a bunch of video menus in the way. So down here, you'll see we've got zoom controls. So I want to zoom all the way out until I can at least see what it is. And then I'll scroll over to the area that I want to crop. Now, the way that I've talked you guys through this before is you go to crop, and then you can fiddle around with the numbers and kind of get the sizes that you want. I actually want to manually select a region without having to do so much number fiddling. So to do that, again, you click crop, go to select region, and you'll see that this is a little hyperlink you can click. When you click that and move over to the image, you get crosshairs. And all you want to do is kind of aim for wherever you think the top left-hand corner is. You'll click and hold down and then drag your mouse across to where you think the end needs to be. And when you lift up, what you get is a cropped version of that. So from here, we resize this so that the height is the height that we want, which is 600. As a reminder, the slides that we have are 950 pixels by 600 pixels. So we'll fit the height, and then we'll come back to crop to fit the width. So I'll make that 950. And then what you get is a giraffe pattern that is perfectly sized to fit the slides that you're working with. So you'll click upload, and what you get is this. So I'll grab that image, pop that in place, roughly where I want it. Now, if I go back to my, wish I could hide these somewhere where I didn't have to click on them. If I go back to my example, you'll see that I've put a wash on this so that it's not so bright as well, because I want the text to stand out. So the way that we do that is coming back to our demo, we'll make a shape, drag it up here, cover up the whole image, and then we change the coloring on this. So we remove the border, change the fill color to black, but drop the opacity way down. So try 20%, for example. So again, that's this A measurement down the bottom. So we'll try 20, and you can see that it kind of creates a little bit of a color difference. It's not enough though, I need it to be a wee bit darker. So we'll go back here and edit this and double it, let's call it 40. And that's more around what I'm looking for. So I leave it like that, and I want to make this a master page. So on the slide that I'm working on, I go to make the master page drop down, and I click make master, and you'll see that that slide now jumps to the beginning and is available for me to select as a master page to set as a background. So you'll see it's called master 1. Now, when I add this, the reason why I make these as master pages is because I want to be able to click on the background but not risk moving that image around. Just makes my life a little bit easier. So from here, I want to add my little background filler. So this is done by add, shape, grab a rectangle again, kind of shove it roughly where you want it to go. And then we want to change the cell style properties on this one. So I gave it a light brown border. The color that I found that I liked was 662012. It was kind of a giraffe brown. So we'll select that as the border. We'll make the width 4 pixels, and we'll change the fill to white. So now I have a nice kind of background that I can use. You'll see that it's covering up the text though. So all I need to do to fix that is go to layout, layer, set to back, and now my text is at the front. Now, the other thing that needs to be addressed here is our font hierarchy. So that's the change in font style to display importance of particular fonts that you're working with on a slide. So to do that, we want to say that this quote is probably the most important thing we want people to read. So this needs to be bigger. So we'll go for like a 22. And Pablo Picasso, he's pretty important, but he's not as important. So he gets to stay the same size, but be bold. Granted, he's important for a number of reasons, but on this slide, his words are the most important thing. So we'll fiddle around with the layout there, and then you end up with something that looks roughly like this. Now, to give you an example on how I've done the sound, for this, I've poked around on this site called Freesound. I would also recommend that you take advantage of any of the smartphones that you have, or an iPad or whatever. You can actually go and record audio directly on your phone and use that as something that you can upload to sit in the background of a slide. Really great option there. What I've done is found Basecamp back noise from, I'm not even going to try to say that, but it's somewhere in Africa, in South Sudan, and downloaded that. The thing you want to keep in mind is any audio file you want to use, try and get an MP3 that uploads nicely and tends to be a wee bit smaller. So try and grab an MP3 file, and to add that onto the slide itself, you go to Add, media, and then audio. Now I've already uploaded this to my authoring area, so I'll grab that and it'll render it as a little audio icon up here. I like to give people the ability to control audio, whether it's, especially if you're going to put it onto autoplay, because a lot of people find that a little annoying when you can't control something and it just keeps playing in the background. So there's a settings cog here where you can show the controls and you can also turn on autoplay. On the authoring area, it looks like a big gray bar, but you'll notice when you hit save and go to preview, much nicer look and feel. So it'll let you listen to the sounds that you've uploaded to make sure that you're happy with everything. And then that's pretty much how we've done this slide. That's what we'll refer to as the opener here. So yeah, that's a great example of a way that you can include a couple of different things, plus some new resources on the icon finder and Freesound. Now, the next slide that I've got is this video on the true facts of giraffes. So to make this one really simple, go to blank, we'll go to add, media, and YouTube. And again, this works with Vimeo videos as well. It's not just limited to YouTube. And we want this to play relatively full screen-ish. So we'll open that up. We'll go to our YouTube video. We will copy the entire URL, come back to our module, and just paste it directly into this box. Now, I like to fiddle with it and preview it and make sure that I'm happy with the size, and I am. The other thing I will often do with these, if it's just a video, I will actually put a black background on that slide to give you a little bit more of a cinematic experience. So you can kind of see roughly like that. That slide is now done. And next we'll go on to making our question slides. So these take advantage of a master page in the background and then a couple of different question styles. So to make this one, similarly to what we've done previously, we went to Unsplash. And I was looking specifically for, let's see if I can find it again. I was looking specifically for an image that had a nice clean-ish background that I could use. I didn't need anything specifically with a giraffe. We could use this one of the zebra as well though. What I'm doing is looking at it with a different eye. I'm not looking at the whole image. I'm looking for space in the background that I can use. So for example, this one, you could crop out a nice landscape square of that, and that could be the background for your particular slide. So when you're looking at images, keep that in mind. Like, you don't have to limit yourself to something that looks like what you already want it to look like. You could also use a number of different things about some of these photos. So for example, this elephant, you could crop out a little rectangle here, and that could be your background if you were doing a slide about elephants, or people with maybe really dry skin. That would work too. But yeah, that's all that I've done, is I've found an image on Unsplash that had a background that I wanted. And that image, if I go to media and image, that image originally was this cheetah photo here. I don't need the cheetah, so I want to crop all of that off. So same thing that I did with the giraffe, I opened it up, cropped out that area, and then resized it to fit the slides that we have. So again, 950 by 600. So we'll double click and add that to that particular slide. And then I added the badge in on the example. You'll see that there. And that's really all that I did. So I made that into a master page, and you'll see that pops over here and is now master 2. And then I come to the end of my module, which is this video at the moment. I add a blank slide, and then I apply master page 2. Now, other thing I've done is pop a really big number reference up in the corner. So starting with number 1, and fiddle around with your cells until you get them kind of roughly where you want it. And I've made this one the size of the title theme, and actually just change the background to white, or sorry, the text color to white. The other thing we have is a kind of like a slightly transparent background for my questions. So this one is, as per usual, you go to shape, find a rectangle or whatever shape you want to use. It doesn't have to be a rectangle, it could be a circle, it doesn't matter. Roughly about the size that you want. And then you'll go to cell style. For this one, I don't want the border. I like the white background, but I want it to be a little transparent so I don't lose too much of my image. So I might drop that down to 80-ish. And then I add in my question. So for this one, this first one is a radio button. Now these radio buttons are question types that you use when you have one correct answer. If you have multiple correct answers, you would use checkbox interaction, and I'll show you how to do that on the next slide. For this one though, we want a radio button. So I'll go to add, interaction, radio, plonk that down there. And my question is, what species does the modern day giraffe belong to? This is a bit of a trick question. So we'll add the question in, and I'm not going to bother typing all of those out because they're all in Latin and it'll take me ages. So we have option 1, option 2, option 3, and option 4. So for this example, option 2 is actually the correct answer. So I'll set that up and I'll click OK, and you'll see that I now have question with some answers. The difference here is that I've actually formatted my question text a little bit differently. These are bigger and they're spread out more. So to handle that, because we don't have independent control over the formatting for the questions, if you want this kind of style where you have independent control over the font formatting for the question text, you just need to hide the question on the interaction, copy that text, make a new cell, paste the text in there, and now you have a cell that you can control independently. So for this one, we might make it bold and 20 and center it. So that is going to be independent of that question itself. The other thing I've done with the answers is change the size to something like 18. And then I've actually taken the display style and switched that to medium, which opens things up a little bit. So when I click OK, you'll see that those all spread out. So that's pretty much it. That's all that I've really done to create that question. Now, the next question that I've got is a checkbox interaction. So for this one, 3rd and 4th are the correct answers. And I like to set these up so that the user has to answer it exactly as it should be done. It defaults, I'll show you what I mean. So when you go to create these, so if I say I want to duplicate that, I'll go through and grab my question text for this one. So we'll copy that, paste it there, and then change this to 2. Now the question itself, I'll paste the new question in there. The way that this works, you'll go to convert to checkbox set, and you'll see that you need to reapply that display style again. So set that to medium. And with your checkbox interactions, you've got a couple different options here. So these default to allowing you to assign an individual point per answer. Most of the time, that's pretty suitable because you're happy with someone earning points for every correct answer that they get. But occasionally, you may want them to answer this with 100% accuracy. So to do that, set up your answers as they should be. The points that this is worth is 1. They only get 1 point, and they get that point when they answer it perfectly. And then you want to make sure that you tick single answer. When you do that, what happens is the user has to only tick 3 or 4 here to get that correct. If they tick 1 or 2, it's not correct. So if that's the functionality that you want, just keep that in mind. You want to make sure that it's set to single answer and that it's out of 1. The out of is the number of points that that question is worth. So if you were happy with it being the default, you would have single answer unticked, and your out of is actually 2 because they get a point for 3 and a point for 4. So hopefully that makes sense. Righto. So that's setting up your checkbox interactions. Now, this next one is measuring the baby giraffe. So first things first, this was a concept that we decided on in regards to how we wanted to use the interaction. The next part, and sometimes the hardest part, is finding supporting imagery that's going to work for what you're trying to do. So I hunted around and I happened to find an image of a baby giraffe that I could crop pretty closely to the baby giraffe. And it was one where it was also a profile shot so that you could see the height. I also liked the fact that the mum was in the background as well, because it gives you a sense of scale. So if you're measuring this out and you say 6 feet, and that's the correct answer, you can also then look at the mother and kind of as a learner be like, oh my goodness, these are actually really big animals. If you happen to have never seen a giraffe before, you'll get the gist of it pretty quickly. So to set this one up, we make a blank slide, and we'll go to add and media, and I'll show you the images that I was working with. So the original image is pretty much like this. The sizing was big enough that it was going to fit. All I needed to do was crop it down to fit on the slide, and also crop this little bit of imagery off because I wanted the edge of that image to be pretty flush with the baby giraffe. So the only differences there are that little bit of cropping, and it's resized so that its height is 600, so it'll fit nicely on my slide. So we'll double click to add that, and we'll pop it over here. Now, if I put the whole thing in full view, it actually takes up too much space. I wanted it to kind of sit roughly halfway. So I just kind of smush it over so the mum ends up a little bit off the screen, but that's all right. Now, other things I've done, we've got our question number reference and then some text. So for this one, we'll just grab that question number that we used previously, go to add, copy, go to the slide, hit paste, change that to 3, and then reapply that title format to get the color somewhere that you can see it. And then I add in my question text. And I'll actually just go ahead and copy all of that as well so I can put it in the interaction. And we'll make that bold, and again, roughly about 18. And I like to put a little bit of instruction on these slider interactions as well, because sometimes it's not obvious to people what they need to do. So for this one, we're going to ask them to drag the slider to the correct measurement. And just kind of sit that underneath there. Now, to add in your slider interaction, you'll go to Add, Interaction, Slider. And you'll see that it formats it in kind of a grayish color with a bunch of numbers and some things that we'll go through what those mean. Double click, add in your question in the same place you normally do. Now from here, I'll go through what these particular values are for. So your range is exactly that. It's the range that you want to set this to. So this can function in decimal points, it can function in whole numbers. It's kind of up to you as to how you want that to work. From my perspective, on my range, I actually want to illustrate that a giraffe is 6 feet tall. So my range will be from 1 to 8. And I don't need to use unit references. These are just numbers. So my range is 1 to 8. Snap is what causes the slider to kind of snap onto specific numbers. The way that you use this is your snap is indicated either as a whole number or as a decimal point or however. Again, this is something you can play around with so that you can get the feel for it. I want my slider to snap onto whole numbers, so my snap is 1. So every whole number, it'll snap onto it, and I'll show you kind of what happens if we change this. So if we click OK, what I now get is my range from 1 to 8, and I actually don't need those numbers to show up. So we'll untick range, and you'll see they are now gone. I also want this to be vertical. So under direction, hit vertical, and you'll see that it is now conveniently in a vertical state. I also don't want the question to be shown. So we'll hide the question. And now we have something similar looking to what I've created in the other circumstance. So kind of sitting that roughly where I had it. What you can do is hit save, go to preview, and play around with it and see what it does. So you'll see that the values that I have, these values are the numbers over here. They're not very big. They don't show up against my photo. And I also don't have an indication of kind of what's being measured either. When I said the thing about the snap, this is what the snap does. So it allows me to effectively stop the slider on every single whole number digit. So if I go back to edit and change snap to say 2, what will happen is that slider will now snap on every second number as an indicator of how that works. For this example though, I want it to snap on every one. Now, how do I fix the labels? So the labels again are the numbers that show up as you move this up and down. For labels, you can put in custom versions. So if you come over here and you click on label, There's also a little bit of instruction here. So you type in your value labels and you separate them by commas. So my value labels, I want to be 1 foot, comma, 2 feet, comma, 3 feet, 4 feet. You get the deal. Let's type the rest of them out really quick. Now I'll have to type all the way up to 8 feet because that's what I've set my range to down here. So we'll go 6 feet, 7 feet. Thank you for your patience. 8 feet. Now that I've set those up, I click OK. And I click OK again. And if I go to preview, you can see that I now have the labels that I've put in. So if we go back to edit, I want to make those labels much bigger, much easier to see. So selecting the interaction, we'll go to text. I'll change the size to 36, the color to white, and I'll make them bold as well. Hit save, go back to preview, and now you can see we have nice big labels that are easier to read. Now, the other thing that I've done to match this up to what I've got is I've added a kind of a wash on that giraffe image just to make those numbers stand out a little bit more. So for that one, same as we have on the other ones, we'll go to shape. I'll pop a little shape up there. And we want the fill color on this to be a really washed out black. So usually go for like about 20%. Click OK. And now you can kind of see what's going on. Now, you'll also notice that that shape that I've added has kind of partially covered up my slider. So I need to fix my layout here. And I want my slider to be on top. There you go. Now, the most important part and making sure that this question works appropriately is that when I actually get to 6 feet, it should be at the top of the giraffe. So laying this out, I want the bottom of my interaction to be roughly even with the feet on the giraffe. And then if you go and preview it and you get to 6 feet, you can see we're not quite where we need to be. So to fix that, you can actually just make this longer. And this is a little bit fiddly, but you get the point. When you get it to about where it needs to be, then you kind of stop. Now, the only other thing is I've changed the color. Really easy to do. Highlight your, click on your interaction, go to cell style, change the fill. In this case, I used a teal. And this will automatically make the slider darker than the bar itself. That's just how it's set up to work. So it's always going to be that way. They're always going to be kind of slightly different hues of the same color. So if we hit save and preview, what we have is our little measure the giraffe interaction. Now this last slide is, as per the other one, just another example of an embedded YouTube video with some design kind of added to it. So to set this one up, we'll go page, blank. We will go to add and media and YouTube. And YouTube has given me the convenient URL that I need. So we'll copy that, paste it in place, kind of roughly center it and sit it on the bottom. And then I will go back and get the text that I've used here. So I've gone with the header of Oliphants River Webcam. We'll hit copy. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Paste that in place. Apply the theme of title. Open this up so everything's on the same line. And then center it. And then I've also provided a little bit of information. So see if you can spot a giraffe in the wild, which is going to be hard to do because it's nighttime there right now. So we'll copy that. And on a new slide, on a new cell, sorry, paste that in place, open it up a little bit, and center that as well. Yeah, I started out with it like this and thought that it looked a little bit boring. So I said, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to find a nice background for this? So what I did on Unsplash was actually just look for patterns. This is a really nice way to include some imagery without needing it to be any specific thing. So you just type in pattern, it doesn't matter. You can type in geometric pattern, whatever you want it to be, nature pattern, whatever. And you'll get a bunch of different things that you can pick from. And it may be stuff that you would have never thought to use, but there's some really great options that'll be really soft in a background. This is a really nice technique that I use quite often with other design elements, just to give it something more than just white. So if you want to apply like a color limitation to it. You can go pattern white. Just type in the color that you're looking for, and you'll often get something that'll kind of suit what you're looking for. They also have filters here that you can pick from. But for my particular slide, I just typed in pattern and kind of scrolled through and really quickly managed to find something that I thought would be perfect. I quite liked this leafy background. I liked that it was dark already because I'm going to have video and text sitting on it. So same thing that I've done with all the other ones. We go to add, media, and image. This is the original. You'll see it's in a really tall kind of portrait layout. All I've done is resized it so that it is the height of the cell and cropped it down so that it fits. And then I just kind of sit that there. And layout wise, we move it to the back. And then I've also added on a shape to kind of filter out and make it a wee bit darker. So same thing that we've done with all those other ones. Make a shape, fill the slide, go to cell style, change the fill color to black 20-ish, somewhere around in there. Helps if I have it selected. Oh no, it's not dark enough, sorry. Make it much darker than that. Go 80. There we go. Might be a wee bit too dark. So if I drop that to say 50, there we go. What I want is to be able to see those leaves. So all I've got here now is just a little bit of a layering issue. So we'll go over here, grab our rectangle and move it so that it's just covering up the image, not the rest of these things. And the last thing to do is select both of those text cells and change the text color to white so that they stand out on the image itself. And that, my friends, is it. So that is how you create my little giraffe demo module from start to finish. Any questions about any of that? Stop my share really quickly. I'm going to take your silence as a no. Does anyone have any questions about anything else before we sign off for today?
Yeah, the one that I did have was basically with the live video that you embedded, you did it off of YouTube. Is there any chance, like I know there's a live feed of the Mairangi Bay webcam on the North Shore, but it's based off the page on a website?
Yep.
Is there any chance I'm able to go and link that through as well, or would that be?
Potentially. So potentially, let me show you how you could look into that. What you'll need to have is a way to embed that video. How can I show this quickly? All right, let's do this. So with here we go, hang on. For podcasts, for example, let's see, we had one on how to, bear with me. So there's a podcast called How Things Work, and they're great. I use them for lots of things. And here we go. So a podcast called Stuff You Should Know. And what they've done is provided embed codes that you can use for things. This is one example of how you could try and approach this. So for their stuff, and for most sites, if they already have embed codes, you can look for a share button somewhere, click share, and then find embed, or there'll be embed code, or kind of add to my website. And you want to grab all of that and copy it.
Yeah, you showed this last week, I remember now.
Yeah. So that's one option if you have embed codes that you can use. If you don't, and I don't know if this will work, this will be something you'd have to play around with. If you don't, you can actually try and embed the entire site as an iframe. So for example, if you go to page, and then we'll make a blank one. Same thing again, you go to view and source code, but now you're going to be hand typing some code in. So for this one, you want to go open bracket, iframe, and then src =, and then some of those things that I can't remember the name of. You grab the entire URL, so copy that, and then you put those between the quotes. There we go, that's the word. And then you go to the end of your quote, close the bracket, and then you need to do the close for the iframe. So an open bracket, a backslash, and then the word iframe again with a close bracket. Click save. And then sometimes, again, this is not a given that it'll work every time, but effectively what this will do is create an embedded version of whatever website URL you put in as a reference. So it's worth playing around to see if it'll work. I can't guarantee anything, but if you can kind of get the video itself that you're working with to play like full screen and it happens to open in a new window, you can try and grab the URL for where it opens.
Oh, perfect. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, try that. It's not going to hurt. And if it does work, let me know and we can use it as an example.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
No worries. Cool. Well, if no one has anything else, I think we can close today's session. And if you think of something after the fact, or if you're watching this video and you have questions, just get in touch with your Bracken account manager, and you'll eventually probably find your way to me again anyway. So without that, thank you all very much for joining us. Appreciate your time, and we will catch you again next week.